We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Little Thursday afternoon edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. We just went live half a second ago, had some technical difficulties. So please, if you are in the chat, let me know. Do I sound good? Do I look good? Are there any issues? I know I've said it quite a bit this week, and it's probably a little bit like beating a dead horse, but producer Matt is in Nashville. As best I know, still without power, so I am working solo. We're doing our best here to keep the show at the level that you expect, especially going into a monster weekend in the world of college hoops. So what do you need to know about today's show? We, of course, have the Arkansas Kentucky Part 2. We're going to discuss all that. And then from there, we will talk about the other big one, the BYU versus Kansas game. So we'll go ahead and discuss that. And then finally, we will wrap with a little bit of an interesting piece of news from the world of college hoops. Charles Barkley has weighed in on the college basketball season, and he believes there's only one team that can win the national championship. So some interesting sound from Charles Barkley. Should note, by the way, John Neighbors, my buddy from Inside Arkansas, he will join us later on this evening to preview Kentucky versus Arkansas, Cal versus Kentucky Part 2. John Neighbors will join us this evening, so make sure that you are subscribed. Speaking of subscribed, make sure you subscribe to Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. We have surpassed 69,500 subscribers. How do we get to 70K before the end of this weekend? I think we can do it, but we need your support. Make sure you're subscribed to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, because we really do appreciate your support of the Aaron Torres Pod. Speaking of support, you know whose support we appreciate more than ever? Our friends, our hotel and casino partners. You already know I am, of course, talking about Circa Sportsbook and the Circa Casino. Okay, so Circa, listen, when you're in Vegas, the best place to watch games anywhere in Vegas, Circa Casino, Circa Sportsbook, beautiful facility, biggest sportsbook in the world, best place to watch games. But we also know that not everybody can make it out to Circa, out to Vegas. Well, guess what? Circa has opened up a brand new sportsbook, a Circa Sportsbook at Mint, Kentucky Downs. You can see it on the screen there. The Mint, Franklin, Kentucky, best place on the East Coast to watch games. It is a beautiful facility, as you can see it there. It is a replica of what you get in Vegas. For those of you who have been to the Vegas Circa Sportsbook, this is exactly what it looks like, but this is what it looks like at the Mint. Again, Mint, Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. All the same hospitality, all of the same great amenities that you are used to at the Circa in Vegas have come to the Mint at Mint, Kentucky Downs. And so we really do appreciate your support of the Aaron Torres Pod, and we appreciate the support of Circa Sportsbook and the new Circa Sportsbook at Mint, Kentucky Downs. With that said, it is a busy Thursday in the world of college hoops. There is no more time to waste, so let's go ahead and get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, listen, if you love college hoops, you already know it is a monster weekend. It actually starts with a big game on Friday night. We're not going to necessarily preview it, but for those who do not know, Friday night we got Michigan at Michigan State, two teams in first place in the Big Ten. By the way, Sunday we could have another top 10 matchup as well because Illinois is traveling to Nebraska. What I want to go ahead and focus on now, though, is the big game Saturday evening, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. And I'll tell you what, for all of the storylines, can we once get a game between Arkansas and Kentucky, Coach Cal and Kentucky, in which both teams are playing at their absolute best coming into this game? Of course, last year, Kentucky was 1-6 in SEC play entering Rupp. They win that game. And then from there, by the way, go on to have a great February, a great March, end in the Sweet 16. This year, it is obviously the University of Kentucky, which to a degree is struggling. I think it's actually maybe even a little bit overblown. I was critical yesterday of the effort at Vanderbilt. Kentucky has won 5 of 6, but it is worth noting they had the big win. They had the big loss at Vandy, was not competitive. They lost by 25 points when they got together with the Vanderbilt Commodores in Nashville. So Kentucky goes back on the road. And, I think it's interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of Kentucky fans. We have no shot. We have no this. We have no that. Well, listen, as I mentioned, Kentucky had won 5 straight games coming into the loss to Vanderbilt. It was ugly. It was inexcusable. But I'll tell you what, who actually thinks Kentucky is a better team than people are giving them credit for? John Calipari. By now, most of you have heard this sound, but after the Oklahoma game on Tuesday night, Cal was asked about the emotion of playing Kentucky. Now, he said, listen, it was just another game last year. It's certainly just another game this year. But he also credited Mark Pope for the turnaround. Here was Coach Cal with his first look at Kentucky, Arkansas, Kentucky versus Cal, part 2.
I don't think so. But what I would say, it's the next game, and we're in a different position. We kind of flipped the switch. Like last year, we were like, what were we when we went to play them? And then we got them pretty good, but we were 1-6. Somebody said it was. I didn't care who it was. We needed to beat somebody, and now the only significance of the game to me is we need to keep winning because let's stay pace with what's going on and people around us. And they're playing great. Mark Pope's doing a great job. He is. Look, for them to struggle and then to him to get him going, he's the right guy for that job. He is.
So that was John Calipari previewing the game to a degree. Now, Mark Pope and Calipari will both have press conferences Thursday, Friday to talk about the game. But let's talk about this one. Let's talk about Cal's comments. First of all, it is worth noting the Cal comments did come before the Vandy loss for Kentucky. So obviously they were on a 5-game winning streak when he said it. But what I'll say is this, is that I get the frustration with Kentucky. I get the fact that every single game it feels like they fall down and they have to rally. But it is worth noting, as I said, they were on a 5-game winning streak coming into the Vanderbilt game on Tuesday. They did lose, by the way, to a very good Vanderbilt team in general. But what I would also say is this. If you can win at Tennessee, if you can win against St. John's on a neutral, you can go into Arkansas to win. And so I think even Arkansas fans understand, listen, we're not taking anything for granted. We know this team is struggling. By the way, as mentioned, John Neighbors will join me Thursday night to preview this game on the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. But at the same time, I guess the question now becomes, what is the pathway for Kentucky to win? And I think, I'll be honest, I actually think there is a pretty clear pathway to doing it, and it is something that in theory they can do. Now, first of all, it's worth noting, you cannot fall down by double digits by 17, 18, 20, 25 points in this game, right? And if you follow Kentucky, and if you listen to this show, we talked about this stat from Matt Jones on Wednesday's show after the Vanderbilt game. I was kind of blown away by this. Kentucky, in 8 games, road or neutral this year, so basically games outside of Rupp Arena, they have been down by double figures in every single one. They have trailed by 17 or more in 7 of 8. So the first goal, do not fall down by 17 plus points or even 10 plus points, because if you do, you have no chance in winning this game. But I do think there is a scenario where Kentucky can win, and it's actually pretty simple. what has Kentucky done in games in which they've won, in big games in which they've won, and what has Arkansas done in games of which they've lost? It's actually very straightforward. For Kentucky to win this game, they have to make a lot of threes, and it's something that, again, in Kentucky's wins they've been able to do, and in Arkansas's losses, they have given up a lot of three-point shots. Don't believe me? I went back and looked it up because in my head, I was like, feel like those Arkansas losses, they really struggled against the three-point shot, and that is exactly what has happened, okay? So in the losses this year in SEC play, Arkansas has given up 10 three-pointers to Auburn. That was admittedly on the road, but they still gave up 10 three-pointers. They also gave up 12 three-pointers in the loss to Georgia. So it's not as though we live in this world where Arkansas is, an elite three-point defense team. It is worth noting, by the way, obviously in the game against Oklahoma got red hot, hit 10 three-pointers themselves. Arkansas just 2. But here is the other counter to that, which I think is worth noting. Kentucky, in the comeback wins, in their best wins in SEC play, 10 three-pointers made against Tennessee. Listen, I don't think you would say that the win over LSU was one of their best wins, but they did trail by 17, 11 three-pointers made in that game. And so there is a pathway. They have to shoot a lot of threes. I think what's also worth noting, and this is something that I know is frustrating John Calipari, is that basically, remember, in the preseason, Coach Cal talked a lot about the idea of, hey, if you don't have a low post presence, you do not have a team. Well, why do I bring it up? Arkansas was out-rebounded against Oklahoma. They were actually out-rebounded against LSU. Now, I don't know that Kentucky is necessarily the team to expose it, but it is worth noting. As far as the Arkansas side of things are concerned, listen, I'm not going to talk as much about how does Arkansas win the game. Well, Arkansas wins the game just by doing what they've been doing every game, especially at home at Bud Walton Arena. They have had success at home. They have not lost, certainly in the SEC, and they've got some nice wins in SEC play, by the way, and some dominant wins. Beat top 25 Vandy by like 25 points in that game. They beat Tennessee by double digits. So, like, if you're an Arkansas fan tuning in saying, Torres, why are you talking so much about Kentucky? It is because, obviously, the pathway for Arkansas to win this game is to keep doing exactly what they've been doing, especially at home. As far as specifics, listen, we said it on the show yesterday. I'm out of hyperbolic things to say about Darius Acuff, okay? I listen, we'll have the conversation about best Cal point guard ever at some point. I think he needs a little bit more. We need to get deeper into the season, right? We need to see, does he help Arkansas win an SEC regular season title? Does he help them win the SEC tournament? Does he help them maybe make that elusive Final Four? But what Darius Acuff has done to this point in the season, it's just absolutely incredible, okay? Darius Acuff so far this season, 20.5 points per game, 6.5 assists per game. And I think what is so crazy about what he's doing is, first of all, he's only averaging 2 turnovers a game, right? So, like, as an example, we all see everyone in the national media glazing, for example, Braden Smith at Purdue. Braden Smith's a great point guard. Braden Smith leads college basketball in assists. You understand Braden Smith also is averaging like 3.5, 4 turnovers per game. So for Darius Acuff to get the buckets that he is, to get the assist totals that he has, to make everyone around him better, and to not turn the ball over, it's absolutely incredible. And it's also incredible, of course, because he is a point guard, because he is a true freshman. And so I just find the whole thing fascinating. And I think that's the biggest reason why I said what I said on Wednesday's show, which is he makes everyone around him better. He's contributing to winning. I think right now he's the best guard in college basketball. Now, it's not to say that he's going to be the first guard off the board in the NBA draft. It's not to say he's had the best career. But right now, John Calipari would not trade Darius Acuff for anybody. And I think that's an important note coming into this game. What's also an important note, listen, you'd like to see more consistency from specific players on this roster. But I think the thing that stands out about Arkansas is that in general, they're shooting the crap out of the ball and they are putting the ball in the basket, 89 points per game. And what's kind of wild about it is they really aren't necessarily getting that consistency from a second guy in specific. What do I mean about that? Well, Malik Thomas is the second leading scorer, 15 points per game. I didn't pull the sound, but Cal had a very funny quote about, how are you getting these two freshman guards to play together? But Malik Thomas, I give him so much credit. Playing off the ball, I said it. If you're old enough to remember Ray Allen at UConn, which was 30 plus years ago at this point, I do remember it. I am that old. It was one of my first years I remember really being invested in college basketball. Malik Thomas plays to me exactly like him. And obviously, like in many ways, he's better than Ray Allen was as a freshman. 15 points per game, 41% or 39% from three-point land. But what's interesting to me is, he had that stretch where he was struggling. Carter Knox has obviously been up and down. He had 11 points against Oklahoma the other night. So I just bring it up because when I look at this Arkansas team, that's kind of the crazy thing to me, is that outside of Darius Acuff, I don't know that you're getting consistency from anybody else, and you're still finding ways to win really big games in SEC play. And that brings us to the decision, if you will. I'm not LeBron James. I'm not taking my talents to South Beach, although that sounds like a fun little trip this time of year. But let's go ahead and get into the actual pick for this game. And to me, it's pretty straightforward. By the way, the chat's very quiet. Why is it so quiet? I need everybody to jump on in. Let us know what you think of this game. But as far as a pick for this game, Arkansas versus Kentucky, listen, I do think, and I was critical of Kentucky yesterday, but they did win 5 games before that loss to Vanderbilt. They have beaten Tennessee on the road. They beat LSU on the road. They beat St. John's on a neutral. So it's not like they are incapable. But I'll be real. I do think Arkansas wins, and I think they probably win going away. Now, I could see the world where, in theory, it's close early, because for all the energy is not the right word, but for all of the fire that's going to be in Arkansas playing at home. This is a big game for Kentucky too. And I understand that none of these guys played for Cal, and it's a different world and it's a different era. They know what's at stake, and they also know Cal's a Hall of Famer. Arkansas is a ranked team. This is a road environment. It is still a big game, even if these guys didn't play for Cal. And so I do think we get something resembling the best effort that we can get from Kentucky in this game. I think, to me, the big issue becomes pretty straightforward. Listen, I can't shake and I can't unsee that stat about Kentucky in road and neutral games. And again, we've talked about it the last 2 episodes, and I did just show the stat, but it is worth showing again because this is just a mind-boggling stat. Kentucky, again, they have played at this point 8 games in road or neutral sites. They have been down double figures in all 8 and trailed by 17 plus in 7 of the 8. And so you can't unsee that when you are talking about probably the most talented team that you've played on the road. I think Louisville's in the conversation, but Arkansas beat Louisville. Tennessee's good, but Arkansas beat Tennessee. The best team that you've played, you're on the road, and you have not been good on the road. And I think the biggest thing to me, you cannot fall down if you are the University of Kentucky. But conversely, and I think this is a little bit of an Arkansas issue, when you get your foot on their throat, you have to take advantage. I think conversely with Arkansas, the last 2 games, they've kind of come out flat. Now, the Oklahoma game was a little bit different. They just didn't really hit threes. If they had hit threes, it would have been a totally different game. But they did fall down 13 in the first half against Oklahoma. Let's not forget that. So it hasn't just necessarily been a Kentucky thing, but Arkansas hasn't had the best starts over the last couple games as well. But I'll tell you what, when Arkansas does get rolling, when they do get comfortable, they get up big, they get up, they get confident, they start running, they start jumping. And I do think Arkansas wins this game. I'll say something like 86-74. I think it'll maybe get a little bit out of hand. I think Kentucky will make a little run late. I think we get a better effort from Kentucky. And I'll say this might sound like a silly thing for me to say. I don't think Cal pours salt in the wound. I think last year was just about getting a win. I think this year, and we'll talk with John Neighbors about this tonight, I think Cal is comfortable I'm the Arkansas coach. Now, whatever happened there, it was 15 great years, but I'm the Arkansas coach now. My focus is on Arkansas basketball. I don't think his goal is to embarrass anybody. I do actually think he has respect for Mark Pope. And I think, if Arkansas gets up big, I don't think he's going to, I don't think it's going to turn into an and one mixtape to try to win that game by 30. Give me Arkansas. What did I say? 86-74 with the victory. Arkansas improves to 17-5. Kentucky falls to 14-18. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back into some of your questions, some of your comments, and we will preview what is also a monster game on Saturday as well. By the way, Jay Finch is very upset. No College Game Day at Bud Walton. It is because College Game Day is going to Kansas for BYU versus Kansas. We'll talk about that. And then one other little side story of note, Charles Barkley says that he believes the NCAA tournament has already been decided. There's only one team that can win it. We'll take a quick break here from Charles Barkley. Again, John Neighbors will also join us later on this evening to talk this game. So plenty more Arkansas, Kentucky, plenty of BYU, Kansas coming up. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, let's be real. Nothing ages you faster this time of year than following your favorite college football team. The recruiting, transfer portal, NIL, maybe you had a coaching change, maybe you're even getting ready for a postseason game. Well, unless you're Notre Dame, another conversation for another day. But it leaves wrinkles and does a number on a man's face. That's why, folks, I use Tiege Hanley. Yes, I've been telling you about Tiege Hanley. I started using it about a month ago now, and I'll tell you what, I look better and my skin feels better even during this hectic time of year. Among my favorite products, the Super Serum and Eye Serum, they've been legit game changers. Fine lines, softer. Under eye bags, way less brutal. Yeah, I might be up all hours of the night watching all sorts of games, but with Tiege Hanley, you'd never know it. What I love about Tiege, everything they make is high quality and designed for us guys. They send you exactly what you need each month, so you don't have to wander around a store pretending that you know what all these labels mean. By the way, ladies, this time of year, this makes the perfect gift for the fella in your life who needs help, your dad, your friend, your coworker, whoever looks like he might have a couple wrinkles rolling in from watching too much film in the middle of the night. Right now, this is what I love about Tiege. They're giving listeners of the Aaron Torres pod a special offer, 40% off your first box plus a free $20 gift. That's an insane deal for how high these quality products are. All you got to do is just click that link below. That's 40% off your first box plus a $20 free gift. An insane offer. Just click the link below. Football might drain you emotionally, but Tiege keeps you looking really good. Even as, again, you're breaking down film late at night. You're not a coach, but you know what? Tiege Hanley's going to make you look good anyway. All right, everybody. Hi, I'm back. Good to be back. Good to be back. I do want to get to some of your comments in the chat. We are going to get to some of them. Again, the Arkansas-Kentucky game, the 6:30 Eastern tip-off. Cannot wait for that one at Bud Walton Arena. Before we get to your questions, before we get to your comments, you already know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our official ticketing partners. We got to go ahead and thank SeatGeek and the SeatGeek app. Okay, so SeatGeek is America's #1 ticketing app. Over 28 million downloads. I always say, Dr. Evil, 28 million downloads. What I love about SeatGeek, two things. One, every ticket on the app rated 1 through 10 with a green dot or a red dot lets you know, should you purchase it, should you stay away, whatever. More importantly, though, what I really love about SeatGeek, they take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. If you go to SeatGeek.com and you use the promo code Torres, that's promo code TORRES, you get $20 off your first purchase, okay? Any game. So if you're a BYU fan, you're traveling to Fall Gala, you need some tickets, go to SeatGeek. Use promo code Torres, get $20 off. If you're an Arkansas fan looking for last-minute tickets, Bud Walton on Saturday, SeatGeek promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. But also, it's not just games. It could be shows. It could be concerts. If they sell tickets on SeatGeek, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off. And I will note, I'm not supposed to say it, but if you use a different email and you use the promo code Torres, if you've already used your first purchase, right? For a second purchase, use a different email and you can still get the discount. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. We appreciate your support. We're going to preview Kansas versus BYU, Dybantsa versus Peterson in half a second. Let's get to some of the comments about the Arkansas-Kentucky game. Tristan said, Tristan sees the game exactly like I do. I think Kentucky will make it interesting, and I'm an Arkansas fan, but I still think the Hogs pull away for a double-digit win. That's kind of where I am on this game as well. Chance says Lowe being out versus Kentucky doesn't have a matchup for Acuff. Chance, no disrespect, I do sort of disagree. I think the best way, nobody can stop Darius Acuff, right? Nobody has this year. I do think physicality, like putting another 5'10" dude on him. I guess Jalen Lowe's like 6'2", whatever. But I don't know that Jalen Lowe physically could handle Darius Acuff. We'll see if it's Denzel Aberdeen, if it's Otega Owe, if it's somebody else that has the assignment for Darius Acuff. Chance does say Arkansas wins 102-82. Chance says Arkansas or Malik Thomas is automatic from behind the 3-point arc. Let's see here. A couple other ones before we get out of there. Somebody references the $22 million roster. Jay Finch says exactly what I said. I think Arkansas fans understand that, and we're going to talk to John Neighbors about this tonight. Remember, come back to the channel, probably about 6 Eastern, 5 Central, somewhere in that time frame. John Neighbors will join us. But I think Arkansas fans have seen enough heartbreak in their day to not get too excited about this game. He said, I kind of wish we couldn't talk much just like last year in January. And let's see here. Bud Walton is going to be insane, says Hog Solo. Anybody, reminder, if you need tickets and you are in the state of Arkansas, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres, does in fact get you $20 off your first purchase. All right, so Arkansas and Kentucky is not the only game of note on Saturday. I'll tell you what, man, you talk about just a fascinating game that will be played in Fog Allen Fieldhouse. Let's get to the other game. So Jay Finch says, no college game day at Bud Walton Arena. It's a shame. I listen, as someone who's been to Bud Walton, it's a great place to watch a game. This is a huge game. You would wish that college game day was there. But the reason that college game day is not at Bud Walton Arena is because of the fact that they are instead in Lawrence, Kansas, Fog Allen Fieldhouse, top 15 matchup, BYU at Kansas. Now, we don't have a Circa Sportsbook point spread yet, but BYU at Kansas. And the reason that college game day is in Lawrence, it's not just because this is a top 15 matchup. It is also because it is AJ Dybantsa versus Darryn Peterson, the presumptive number 1 pick versus the presumptive number 2 pick. In what order remains to be seen. But I'll tell you what, man, if you're just a casual college basketball fan or an NBA fan looking for something to watch, this should be a great game. And by the way, for people that are wondering, will Darryn Peterson play? Kansas has been off all week. They last played on Saturday. Darryn Peterson did not play at Kansas State. Bill Self did go on John Rothstein's podcast, and John Rothstein tweeted earlier this week, quote, Darryn Peterson is expected to be available Saturday against BYU. Per Bill Self, did not play in the last game, averages 21 points per game this season. I'll tell you this, I checked in with a few people as well. I don't want to speak for everyone at BYU, but they are preparing as if Darryn Peterson plays. And let's get into this game because I will say this. First of all, I want to give Kansas credit, right? Because I think Kansas fans think I don't like them. I've been critical over the last couple years, but it's because they have disappointed. Preseason number 1 team, each of the last 2 years didn't have success. It doesn't change what we've seen this year. And what we've seen this year, I think Kansas, all things considered, has been an incredibly resilient team because every game you're getting a slightly different team, right? Darryn Peterson is maybe the best player in all of college basketball. The issue is you never know when you're going to have them. First, it was the hamstring. Then it was cramps. Now it's an ankle. And I'm not accusing Darryn Peterson of anything. What I am saying is Kansas has now played 21 games. Their regular season is 2/3 of the way done. Darryn Peterson has missed half of the games for Kansas this season. And I think what's kind of interesting and kind of noteworthy is that Kansas is actually 8-2 in games without Darryn Peterson, and they are 7-3 in games with Darryn Peterson. So they actually have a better win-loss record without Darryn Peterson. Now, it is worth noting, of course, that, to be fair, obviously a lot of the games that Darryn Peterson missed were during the out-of-conference portion of the slate, a lot of bye games. So some of the easier games on the schedule he didn't play, but it's not like they have completely sunk without him. As a matter of fact, some of their best wins are without him on the court, including, I know Kansas State isn't very good, but to go to Kansas State in a rivalry game and win by 26 points like they did last Saturday, it shows you how talented this team is, how good this team is, and how good the pieces are around outside of Darryn Peterson. Speaking of which, let's talk about some of them. Listen, I think you can argue, given everything that has been put on his plate, Melvin Council at Kansas has been as impressive as any player in college basketball. Now, is he going to be a first-team All-American? No. But this is a guy that sometimes has to play on the ball. Sometimes he has to play off the ball. Sometimes he's the primary scorer. Sometimes he's not. It's all dependent on what Darryn Peterson does and when Darryn Peterson is playing. And I feel like there is no one who has had more thrown on his plate. And that's why I say he's the most impressive player or one of them in college basketball. Not because he's the best, but because his role changes every single game. Averaging 13 points per game this season. To his credit, 5.5 assists actually lead the team. The 5.5 assists are actually a team high. So we think of Darryn Peterson as this lead guard. It's Melvin Council Jr. who is leading this team in assists. And again, without Darryn Peterson, he stepped up. 17 points the other day against Kansas State. 18 the game before against Colorado. That was the game Bill Self missed. He was hospitalized. There was an interim head coach. Darryn Peterson was out of the lineup, whatever. But you look at this Kansas team, and they have been incredibly resilient. They come into this game having won 4 straight. They are coming off of essentially a bye week. We don't call it that in college basketball, but they have not played since last Saturday. So they're refreshed. They're recharged. Bill Self is back on the sideline. Darryn Peterson is expected to play 4-game win streak. And by the way, credit to all of the players outside of Melvin Council as well. Trey White has kind of become that emotional leader. Remember, he was the guy that called the players-only meeting after their most recent loss at West Virginia. Everybody says a lot of stuff got thrown onto the table after that. So Trey White is playing very well. Flory Badunga has played pretty well. I still like Bryson Tiller. I know it's kind of hit or miss depending on the game. But I just bring it up because they're getting good contribution from everyone other than Darryn Peterson. As far as BYU is concerned, listen, we've talked a lot about BYU this week because it's been a busy week for the BYU Cougars. BYU, of course, hosted number 1 Arizona on Monday night. Great game, great atmosphere. You lose by 3. And like I said at the time, I think there's a lot of positives and there's some negatives that you can take out of that game as well. I think the positive, if you're BYU, you did not the positive about BYU is this, is that you did not get a very good game from AJ Dybantsa or Rob Wright. Those are your 2 leading scorers. AJ's averaging about 24 a game. Rob Wright's averaging like 18. So you do the math. They're combining to average what? About 40-plus points per game as a duo. They shoot 9 of 40 from the field. And despite all of that, you are still in position to win that game late. Richie Saunders, by the way, fouled out. And what I think is impressive and what I think is worth noting is a couple things. One, and this is important, especially for the Kansas game, BYU held up very well on the offensive boards and on the boards in general against Arizona. Remember, Arizona is one of the best rebounding teams in college basketball. Number 3 in the country in offensive rebounds. You know, Tommy Lloyd comes from that Gonzaga system, and so you think of Arizona as they shoot, but they don't shoot very many threes. They're great in the paint. They dominate the paint. They dominate the boards. BYU and Arizona, it was basically about even in terms of rebounding. I think Arizona had another rebound or 2, but if I'm not mistaken, 3 total offensive rebounds for Arizona in that game, which is well below their season total. And that was in a game in which Abdullah Ahmed, of course, the player that came from the G League for BYU, basically was a complete non-factor. So in that game, Arizona out-rebounded BYU by 2, and then Arizona had 7 offensive rebounds, which is one of their season lows on the season. So you just look at that. That is a positive for BYU. I think the other positive is that in a game in which AJ Dybantsa and Rob Wright statistically did not play well. AJ got 24 points, but it was on 24 shots. It was the fact that even when he did not play well, what was worth noting was that in that game, Kennard Davis stepped up. So Kennard Davis, transfer from Southern Illinois from the beginning, and we talked about it on Monday's show. He was supposed to be that number really 3 or 4 guy, right? He averaged about 16 a game at Southern Illinois, 38% three-point shooter, and he just hadn't been that guy. He had been 0 for 12 in his last 3 Big 12 games from the three-point arc. Well, against Arizona, he showed up, 5 three-pointers made, and listen, you don't need him to be a 20-a-game scorer. But if you can get consistently 10, 12, 13, 14 points from that guy, it changes the whole dynamic of BYU because now you're not relying on AJ Dybantsa, Rob Wright, Richie Saunders to do all of the scoring. And right now, that's the biggest issue for BYU. Like I said, AJ Dybantsa, Rob Wright, 24 and 18 per game. Richie Saunders at 17 a game. So again, you do some math, that's around 60 plus points per game that you're relying on from those guys. And if any of them has an off night, it kind of torpedoes you. Which brings us to my official prediction for the Kansas BYU game. Listen, it's hard to pick against Kansas. Okay, so first of all, I have been to Fog Allen. I still say it is number 1 as far as toughest places to play for a big game. It's hot. The fans are right on top of you. I think it's worth noting, it's the first time Kevin Young is going to coach at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. Obviously, for most of the players, it's the first time they're playing there. And if you've never been, I always say it's like Wrigley Field. Like it's an arena that would never be built in 2026. But that's also what makes it such a tough place to play. Fans are right on top of you, all bleachers, super hot. And I think that when you look at BYU, that's my biggest concern is, listen, through no fault of their own, they just don't have a ton of depth. For people who don't follow BYU on a day-to-day basis, 3 season-ending injuries to that team, including 2 guys that they were actually expecting quite a bit from. Nate Pickens, a transfer from UC Riverside, was kind of that 3-and-D guy, another good wing defender to help out Kennard Davis, to help out AJ Dybantsa. Dawson, I was going to say Dawson Garcia. That was the dude who played who played for Minnesota. Dawson Baker was actually their 4th leading scorer, 6th man. He is now out for the year as well. It's a lot to ask, especially on the road. And I think the other thing is, too, it's not just the offensive end. It's that whether it's AJ Dybantsa, whether it's somebody else, now you're asking everybody to exert that much more on defense. And so that, to me, is, I think, what is most interesting about this game is the fact that AJ Dybantsa now probably, is your best wing defender. The issue is, how much can you actually play him on the other team's best player, because you need him to get 25 a game. And so listen, if this was the NCAA tournament on a neutral court, I might feel different. Maybe in the Big 12 tournament, I'd feel different. But to go to Kansas and to play in that arena, you're shorthanded. You're going to be shorthanded all year. I just think it's a bad spot for BYU. Now, it's worth noting, BYU was up what? BYU fans know what? 6-7 minutes to go against Texas Tech. If you're up with 6-7 minutes to go at Texas Tech, you can certainly pull off the upset against Kansas. I just don't think it's going to happen. Also worth noting, we unfortunately were not able to get the sound, but Bill Self, for all of the ups and downs of the Darryn Peterson era, he gushed about him when he talked to Rothstein earlier this week. He said, listen, the only comparison when Darryn Peterson is locked in is when Kevin Durant came to Fog Allen. He said Durant had something like 24, 25 at halftime. I had future NBA players saying, I can't guard this guy. There's nothing I can do. Darryn Peterson does have that effect. If you have not watched him, like I said, I think he's going to play. Now, the question becomes, how much does he play? Do they go hard in the first half? Whatever. But with Kansas, you go back to that Baylor game a few weeks ago, Friday night game, where Darryn Peterson just went absolutely bananas in the first half. If you did not see that game, Darryn Peterson finished that game with 26 points overall. I believe he had about 14 points like 8 minutes into the game. And so I just bring it up because it's just one of those deals where it is a tough ask of Darryn Peterson. It's a tough ask of BYU on the road. I'll say Kansas wins this game 81-72. Kansas gets the win over BYU. Darryn Peterson versus AJ Dybantsa goes to Darryn Peterson. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take one more break. We're going to come back. When we do, some very interesting sound out of Charles Barkley. He says there's only one team that can win the NCAA tournament. Charles Barkley talking a little bit of college hoops. One more segment left. Quick break. Be right. We'll be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Callie Puffs and CalliePuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Callie Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan. And one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Callie Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Callie Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to CalliePuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, CalliePuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase. One bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. CalliePuffs.com gets you 15% off. Callie Puffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but CalliePuffs.com, CalliePuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Callie Puffs. All right, everybody. I'm back. Gonna be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. Thank you again to Callie Puffs, our official partner. Listen, you need something for that Super Bowl party. You need something to have a snack around the house. It tastes good. It's healthy. Callie Puffs, CalliePuffs.com. If you use promo code Torres, you get 15% off your entire purchase. Thank you to Callie Puffs. Did mention, by the way, the last episode, Kourtney Kardashian was shouting out Callie Puffs on her Instagram. It was pretty cool to see. Let's get to some of the chat. A lot about ESPN College Game Day choosing Kansas BYU over Arkansas Kentucky. Showtime says ESPN cheats itself again. Arkansas versus Kentucky will have a better rating. What I would say is, listen, I'm the kind of guy, I like chocolate ice cream and vanilla ice cream and strawberry ice cream. I like, won't get into too many more metaphors there because it could go down a slippery slope. But I bring it up because why did we put all of these games on the same day? And I understand it's the first Saturday without NFL football. It's the first Saturday without football in general since August. But Dybantsa versus Peterson, if you're only going to do it once, work with the Big 12. Maybe make it the last game of the regular season. Arkansas, Kentucky, have it this weekend. Next weekend is obviously Duke UNC. By the way, as we learned last year, you don't have to go to Duke UNC every single year for College Game Day. I'm sorry, you just don't. So Showtime Insta says, I agree with you. This is a mess. Let's see here. Hogs, this is funny. He says, Hog Solo says, I should have used promo code Torres to get $20 off my ticket to the OU game that ended up being free. So I will say this. You know, that was part of the reason why it was hard for me to be critical of Arkansas, struggling to put away Oklahoma. Weird situation on Tuesday night. The game is in Oklahoma. Tickets are free. For people who missed this, tickets were completely free for this game just to get people in the arena because of the crazy weather. A lot of Oklahoma fans, probably more Oklahoma fans than there would have been if you had to pay. But then conversely, also a lot of Arkansas fans as well. It was just a strange environment, but in some ways in a good way. By the way, Showtime says, Woo Pig Suey from St. Louis. By the way, Circa, our presenting casino and hotel partner, they have opened up the new sportsbook at Mint Kentucky Downs, but they are also licensed in Missouri. So if you're making bets this weekend, use Circa. We appreciate their support, but download the app, use Circa. They're our partners. We love working with them. We will get you a point spread on Kentucky versus Arkansas as soon as possible. Let's see if we got one or two more things in the chat that are worth noting. Bud Walton is going to be insane. Billy Richmond, Billy the Kid, the Billy Goat, Big Beautiful Bill says, Billy Richmond said whiteout on Saturday at Bud Walton. I, for one, totally agree. All right, let's go ahead and wrap the show. By the way, for people just joining us, I know I keep saying it, John Neighbors from Inside Arkansas will join me this evening, so we'll have more preview of Arkansas versus Kentucky. Also, if you're listening on podcast, we'll play that interview at the end of this segment, so it won't be too long. But so if you're listening on podcast, you'll get that there as well. Do want to go ahead and wrap the show though. I heard some funny sound, some interesting sound on Monday, I guess it would have been Thursday morning. Our Torres on I won't spoil who shared it because it'll give away the story. But so Charles Barkley, we know who he is. Obviously NBA legend, obviously Auburn basketball legend. And listen, over the last couple of years, he has obviously had a vested interest in the NCAA tournament, in college basketball, in March Madness, because he was part of the Turner CBS coverage of the NCAA tournament. Now, I'll be curious. It'll be very interesting to see now that Inside the NBA is with ESPN, if he is allowed to call March Madness games. In some ways, I would think the answer is obviously no. But conversely, what I would also say is the opposite could be true as well. Turner still produces Inside the NBA. It's from the same studio in Atlanta. And so maybe they have worked out some sort of deal where Barkley and Kenny Smith and Shaq can call college, or I guess Shaq never really did it, but Inside the NBA guys, Kenny and Chuck at the very least, can be part of March Madness. I bring it up because it'll be interesting to see, but Charles Barkley clearly has had a vested interest in college basketball in recent years. What has also happened, if you have paid attention, Charles Barkley and the Inside the NBA guys are not happy. They haven't been working very much for ESPN. Okay, so ESPN has the NBA package. They had them on once during the entire month of December. They've had them on, I guess, now twice during January, but none until last weekend. So that was about the 22nd, 23rd, whatever it was. Charles Barkley was not happy. What that also means, and let's go ahead and get to the punchline of what I'm talking about. Charles Barkley has had plenty of time to watch college basketball. And I'm not putting words in Charles Barkley's mouth, but he was on Inside the NBA on whatever it was, Wednesday night. Maybe it was Thursday. I guess it would have been Wednesday night. Was talking about something and somehow talked about his college basketball consumption habits. He says he believes there is one team that is a cut above everybody else in college basketball.
So I tell you, man, I've been watching these games very closely because
you get paid to.
No, it's starting to get serious because I'm getting ready to take our hiatus because I've been watching more college basketball. And as I call March Madness, it's the Arizona Invitational, just for the record. That's what March Madness is going to be. It's going to be the Arizona Invitational.
Bet it.
But
Charles Barkley calling the college basketball the Arizona Invitational. First of all, I'll say this. He said we're getting ready to take our hiatus. That sounds to me like they will still be allowed to be part of the NCAA tournament coverage on CBS and Turner. I don't have an answer, and maybe it's something I can reach out to Turner on to try and get an answer on. That would be awesome if they are back for college basketball, but it does raise the question. Charles Barkley basically said it's Arizona and everybody else in college basketball right now. Are they the only team that can win the national championship? Charles Barkley seems to think so, so let's go ahead and dive in. By the way, if you are an Arizona fan, go ahead and make sure to follow our Torres on Arizona page for all of your late-breaking Arizona news. So listen, I will tell you this. Is Arizona the only team that can win the national championship? Of course not. And as a matter of fact, maybe next week is a fun week where we really start to dive into like, okay, how many teams can actually win the national championship? But I just bring it up because they are plus 500 at Circa Sportsbook right now, and they are among, I think, a handful of teams that can win it. And I do think if I was picking right now, they're the number one team in the country with the best resume in college basketball. And I do believe, I'll be totally transparent, that Arizona should be considered favorites to win the national championship. Why? They have so many guys that can beat it. First of all, just look at the resume. The resume, and we talked about this on the show the other day. I give Tommy Lloyd so much credit because when they left the Pac-12 for the Big 12, I wonder, Tommy Lloyd had been a guy that historically was very aggressive in scheduling. And I bring it up because when they left the Big 12, for the Big 12, I kind of question, is Arizona going to keep scheduling elite out-of-conference games? Well, this year, they certainly did because they played Florida on opening night. They played UCLA in LA. They played at UConn. They played Auburn at home. They played Alabama in the state of Alabama and San Diego State. Plus, they have played, obviously, Big 12 games, including at BYU this week, and they continue to win, and they continue to pick up victories, and I give that team and program so much credit because they're not only scheduling tough, but they have won all these games. And so when you start talking about favorites, Arizona has to be the favorite right now. I know Circa technically still has Michigan above them as far as odds are concerned, but I just bring it up because you look at Arizona, they have played and beaten many of the best teams in college basketball. But when I look at them, I think there are some things that should make them the overwhelming favorite going into March, at least as of right now, always subject to change. First of all, I always say the number one precursor to success in March. Everybody asks, what's the secret to winning games in March Madness? To me, it's actually pretty straightforward. To me, I actually think, in my opinion, it is more than everyone talks about guard play this and you need that. You know what you need? You need NBA players. And I keep saying it. Go back. Every national champion in my lifetime has had 2, 3, 4 guys that have played in the NBA. Just take Florida, for example, last year. Florida. We all talk about Walter Clayton, whatever. Florida had 3 dudes just off of last year's team that were drafted by NBA teams. Will Richard, who's playing for the Golden State Warriors, of course, Walter Clayton, and also Elijah Martin. Beyond that, Tommy Hawk, who's on this year's team, Alex Condon, who's on this year's team, Ruben Chinyelu, who's on this year's team. All 3 of them were on last year's roster as well. They're all going to play in the NBA. So you're talking about 6 players on that Florida roster that will probably see time in the NBA, and it's the same with all these UConn teams that have won. It's the same with whatever. It's the number one precursor. Look at Arizona. Arizona, I think, after this year is going to have minimum 3 guys drafted. Jaden Bradley, Fran Fraschilla keeps talking about it on the broadcast. Everybody needs a third guard on their roster. Everybody needs a dude that you just trust with the ball that can make plays. Jaden Bradley's going to get drafted. And then Koa Pete and Brandon Burries, I believe, are going to be first-round picks. So you have the NBA talent. You also beyond that have the guard play, like I mentioned. You need great guard play in March. Jaden Bradley, Brandon Burries, you trust those guys. You can get buckets down low. I think that's the big thing, right? I don't necessarily believe, there's this notion of what's the old saying that, you live by the 3 and you die by the 3. I don't know that I believe that. I do believe the John Calipari notion of, if you can't get buckets inside, you're not a real team. In other words, I'll give you an extreme example. Okay. The Louisville Cardinals, great, decent team, good story, fringe top 25 team. Their issue is they have no ability to score in the paint. And so if the threes aren't falling, they cannot win games. And so they cannot win games in the ones that matter. Pat Kelsey is 0-4 against Duke in the 4 times that he's played them as the Louisville head coach. Struggled against ranked teams. I believe the stat is the only team that was ranked when Louisville beat them was Kentucky this year. So anyway, I'm rambling. But the point I'm trying to make is I don't think if you live by the 3, you die by the 3. But I do think if you can get easy points in the paint, that is an X factor. Arizona, great in the paint. Koa Pete. You also obviously have Krivas. And so they have all the pieces. Now, are they the overwhelming favorite? I don't know. Is it the Arizona Invitational? I don't know. I think Michigan's pretty good. I actually think Duke's maybe the second best team in college basketball right now. You know, we talked about it on the show last week. I will be curious if UConn figures things out. 5 of their last 6 wins have been by single digits, but you look at what they've done. They have had success against, they beat Kansas at Kansas. They beat Illinois. They beat BYU. So they have the wins on their resume. It's just a question of, can they consistently get the production that they need out of the guys that they need, especially as we get deeper into the season. So with Arizona, Charles Barkley is calling the NCAA tournament the Arizona Invitational. But again, you can get points in the paint. Jaden Bradley is a dude. And you have NBA players. By the way, they can win offensively and defensively as well. They can get buckets when they need to. But Karchenkov is, and Fraschilla said it on the broadcast the other night, he's already one of the best wing defenders in all of college basketball. I really, 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 really like this Arizona team. I do think they should be the favorite. Again, according to Circa Sportsbook, we don't have producer Matt. If we did, we would have all of the fancy graphics. But Arizona right now is actually number 2 in the Circa Sportsbook odds behind Michigan as far as college basketball futures. Arizona at plus 500, Michigan at plus 370. By the way, if you still want to make a bet, Houston is plus 1,000. UConn is plus 1,200. We mentioned the fact that Circa is now available in Missouri. Arkansas at plus 8,000 that you can still get them at. So $100 would win you $8,000 if they go on to win the national championship. But yeah, Charles Barkley says he believes there is only one team that can win college basketball's national championship. All right, I'll tell you what. We're going to get out of here before we do. Elite Eli says it would be funny if Arizona loses as a 16 seed. I don't see that happening. You know, there's obviously been 2 16-seed upsets. That Purdue team was so reliant on all things Zach Edey in 2023. Now, 2024, they were a more complete team. But if you remember, 2023, Fletcher Lawyer, who's still struggling as a senior, and Braden Smith were both freshman guards. They were a year ahead of schedule. A year later, they go to the Final Four. The Virginia team that lost in the tournament, they just couldn't score. They just could not score. And so when you fall down 8, 10, 12 points playing the way Virginia did in that era, you're just going to struggle to come back and struggle to have success. So I am not surprised at all that Virginia lost as a 16 seed. Arizona, I don't see it. I think they're going to win by the opening game by 30 points. I think they're going to be fine. Let's see here. Back to Arkansas, Kentucky. Certainly hope Arkansas defeats Kentucky. Kentucky will be playing like a wounded tiger with Hunters closing in. They will play 10 times better than they did against Vanderbilt. Tough game. That's kind of my stance, is that basically you look at that Kentucky-Arkansas game, you got the worst performance possible from Kentucky in the loss to Vandy. I think you get a better performance. I just don't know if you can sustain it for 40-plus minutes. All right. I'll tell you what, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. If you're not subscribed to the Aaron Torres pod, please make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you get your podcast, please make sure to subscribe. Make sure to rate and review the show on Apple, Spotify. Give us a quick 5 stars. Follow on social media at Aaron_Torres on Twitter, at Aaron Torres pod on Instagram. And I'll say this too. Make sure you are subscribed to that Inside College Sports email newsletter completely for free. Comes to your inbox every single day. It's a fun combination of all sorts of good stuff, of NIL, portal, all that good stuff. So make sure you're subscribed. If you want to become a member, support the show. We really do appreciate that as well. Darren in from Australia says, thanks for another great show. Darren, thank you for your support of the show. Darren, of course, is in Australia, so we appreciate your support, Darren. More on the Kentucky game. We can save all that. I think that's it for this week. Now, again, if you are listening on podcast, John Neighbors coming up next. If you're listening on YouTube, John Neighbors will join us about 6 p.m. or so Eastern tonight, and we will have plenty to talk about more with the Kentucky-Arkansas game. We're going to get out of here. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, you F-head. Unblock me, bro. We will be back Sunday morning, and you know we're going to have plenty to talk about on the Aaron Torres pod. Thank you guys for listening.